Welcome back to Inspired Inc., the CWS podcast, a show where we promote indie comic creators and become inspired by what they create and their journey of creating it. I'm your host, Brandon Bloxdorf, and today we have Brandon Ingram joining us. He's the creator of The Gallows Man, and we talk about ways of formatting your Kickstarter for maximum performance, advice on conventions, and what to be mindful of as you set up your table at a con. All this and so much more on today's Inspired Inc. Yeah, dude. Man, I can't. How long ago was it that we did an interview with Apollo on that live?
Maybe a year ago. I think the key thing I remember us talking about was original art, because I remember you had like a Swamp Thing piece. Like that's the key thing I remember, is you showed some sort of Swamp Thing piece. I was like, holy crap. Like
Yeah, I
that
have a whole
Swamp Thing
Swamp
piece
Thing
is stuck
shrine
in
now
my
over here.
yeah, it's been stuck in my brain for like over a year basically.
Did you grow up like just like reading, DC Marvel books and stuff like that? Like what really got you into like comic books in general? Like speaking of Swamp Thing and whatnot.
Yeah, I think the big thing was, I grew up with the movies, because I was born in '97, but I'm not going to claim I'm a '90s kid.
Mhm.
I didn't even experience 3 years of the '90s. Like most people don't remember anything before 5. You remember a few memories before the age of 5. That's about
That's
it.
true.
So I was more of a 2000s kid. So I grew up on like the Raimi Spider-Man movies, and then but the first movie I remember seeing in theaters was Ang Lee's Hulk. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying it's the first movie
Yeah.
theater experience I remember is Ang Lee's Hulk. Um, so I remember that being one of the first comic slash superhero uh, medias that I had. And then in terms of comics, I remember going to a yard sale with my mom, and this guy had like a shoebox full of comics, and it was like stuff from the 70s, 80s, 90s, just a mixed match of stuff, some action comics, some Amazing Spider-Man, some random Marvel series like DP7 and stuff like that. And it's always random issues as well, but bought that shoebox of comics for like $10, I think, and just tore through them, even though it's like the part 5 of a 12
Yeah.
part arc or sort of thing. Like getting into comics, like you don't really care. And especially with comics at that time, like whatever people think about Stan Lee, I think the motto that he said of like everyone's comic is someone's first, I think is like spot on.
It is.
And I think they still write for that nowadays, but I think back then like that was something they thought about, because I mean look at my origin into comics. Like I read these 70s, 80s, 90s stuff that was just issue 184 of Amazing Spider-Man. That was a part of a random arc. I was in the middle of a random arc, but I still loved it. But I
Mhm.
never went to the comic shop because there wasn't one near me at the time, and continued the story or saw from the beginning. So it was one of those things where it's like, oh, like Spider-Man's now all chained up over a vat of acid or whatever. I guess that's like where the story ends.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's funny you say that too, because I had a very similar like upbringing when I was like getting comics for the first time as a kid. I think my dad bought like this thing from it was like at Toys R Us, I want to say. It was like a comic book rack type of looking thing, but it had all these like random, like, it had like Youngblood and like all these weird, Marvel books and everything. And it was just a mixture of stuff that it didn't make sense to me, but like when you're a kid, you're not really caring about like the
No.
story and you're not thinking of plot or like how does this connect? You're just like, these characters look cool, so I'm attracted to this. And the story seems like just insane and just wonky. Like nothing makes sense when you're a kid. You know what I mean? Like
Oh yeah, yeah.
everything is kind of like out of context no matter what. But like comics are one of those things that you could pick up and be like, I'm just gonna enjoy this somehow. And everyone pulls their little thing from it. But it's kind of interesting because that shuffle of everyone can any comic could be anyone's first comic, as an indie creator, thinking about that and carrying that on, it really does like help you no matter what, because like, when you talk about like the business side of like making comics and curating and stuff like that, like, so I'm sure selling an issue 1 of Gallows Man is a lot easier than selling issue 2 or 3. And I think that's
Right,
why your
right.
Kickstarter is really smart, where you're doing it as like 1 through 3. You're offering everything so people could catch up, so people could just jump in for the first time and not miss a beat. You kind of got to figure out a formula for people not to miss a beat. Is that kind of why you're formatting your Kickstarter that way too?
Oh yeah, yeah. The reason I formatted my Kickstarter that way was multiple reasons, but that's the big one. Is it's been, I mean, I've done a few Kickstarters since Gallows Man 1 and 2 Kickstarter, but it's been a couple years since that Kickstarter, and within that 2.5 year span, there have been more people that have like come on to my stuff and have checked out my stuff that weren't there for that initial Gallows Man stuff. So they've checked out Dismay Avenue, they've checked out Tales from Town City. They're now, this is their like first introduction into Gallows Man sort of thing, because they became a fan like a year ago or 2 years ago sort of thing, to where it's a good introduction thing. And it's titled like Gallows Man issues 1 through 3 sort of thing. uh, for those that have followed along this whole time, they picked up Gallows Man 1, they picked up Gallows Man 1 and 2. Issue 3 is right there in that title, and also in the tiers, like you can just like jump in and get issue 3 sort of thing without getting the others. But there are also those like catch up tiers and stuff for
Mhm.
the newbies into the series and stuff. And what you had mentioned before, like that you had mentioned like indie comics, at some point an indie creator will experience this. Your comic is someone's first comic.
Yep.
And I think I experienced that with some of my first couple Kickstarters. The first time you like genuinely like see it because people tell you it is like when you start doing conventions and stuff. Because I did like a horror convention, and like a
Oh,
couple
cool.
people uh don't read comics. They never really read comics, but they saw some of my horror stuff and they're like, "Oh, sweet. Like I'm I'm not really into comics, but I'll check it out." And one lady, like I'm still going to remember this cuz like these interactions are always awesome at conventions. One lady came back the next day, and she also lived like 30 minutes away from the convention. Like
Wow.
she wasn't in the town. She came back the next day and she was like, I came back to get issue 2. I came
Oh,
back to
rad.
get Dismay Avenue number 2 because I read issue 1. I was like, this is great. I want to see some more of his horror stuff. And that made like my whole weekend. Like
Yeah.
overall, the con went well. The con could have gone like crappy the rest of the time, but that one thing would have like got me through it sort of thing. I've been like, this was worth it sort of thing.
There's so many cool things to unpack from that too. Like, I mean, in general, like when you're at conventions and you're conning, like, the fact that you first mentioned you went to a horror convention. I love hearing when creators are trying to find different avenues other than
Oh
like, because
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
business. You know what I mean? What you're
Yeah.
doing is a business. You're trying to get word out. You're trying to get sales, and the sales part is like, it varies on creators. Some people's are just like, I just need to get enough to reprint and maybe pay my artist a little bit, maybe get lunch for the day or something. But
Yeah,
like
yeah.
getting people just to like get out there and get your books out there in an unconventional way, that's one of the smartest things, I think. You're expanding the market, you're expanding the word of comics, you're expanding the word of dismay. Like, you're doing a lot of positive stuff. And honestly, when you table differently, like outside of Artist Alley, maybe if you try to get an exhibitor spot or a vendor spot, or a convention that's just related to like a genre you publish, you'll probably have more sales and more success and more interactions than you would if you just went to Artist Alley. And that's been a
Oh yeah.
weird thing I've been picking up this year too.
Yeah, that's a key thing that I've experienced with a lot of conventions and stuff. I haven't done as much this year. I did a ton last year. This year I've done 4 this year. I might do one more towards the end of the year. I'm not doing a whole lot this year with cons. But
Still a good amount though.
yeah,
Like, honestly, like
yeah,
overall, yeah.
it's a lot of fun, and I also recommend like people. I I like the bigger conventions, but honestly, in terms of what you're paying for the artist alley table, what you're paying for, or for food, and if you're getting a hotel, possibly. Um, Sometimes the smaller conventions are pretty good in terms of interaction, as well as like at least breaking even, like making your money back at least.
That
Especially
part,
if
just
you're,
breaking even so hard
yeah,
sometimes,
yeah.
man. Like,
Especially if you're a publisher or you're a writer, because it's one thing if you're an artist slash writer, you can sell your art, you can sell sketches, you can sell sketch covers, you can do commissions, and you'll easily make your money back, if not make a profit. If you're a writer or publisher, though, it's a lot tougher, especially with some of these conventions. Like there's one near me. I used to, the dream was like, hey, this is the biggest convention near me. I want to do this one day. And then one day I got the opportunity to try to do that. I they accepted me and they sent me the application, and I looked at it and it said $700 for an artist alley thing. I was like, no,
man,
I
that's
don't care
so
to do
much.
that anymore.
Yeah,
It's one of those things where you do want to do these conventions. You do want to do some of these conventions and stuff, but I say like maybe the first couple you can do like these big dream ones where like you're
mhm.
going
Yeah,
in, you know you're going to lose money, but you just want to be there. You want a table there, and there's also you make the most of it. There's also other creators that you might want to go talk to, or just say like, hey, like you inspired me to follow this path, sort of thing. That stuff is great. I had that experience with Fan Expo New Orleans.
cool, cool.
Great experience. I lost money, but it overall the experience is what was worth it. So it's good to do those, but at the end of the day, you can't do that for all your conventions. You can't just lose
Exactly.
money, lose money, lose money. So that's why I like doing kind of the smaller conventions. Is almost all the time I'm going to at least break even, if not do more.
Mhm.
And it, I don't like to look at it this way, but if you are looking at it in a business sense, uh, less competition, especially with these smaller conventions. I believe in my book, but a lot of times at these smaller conventions, you don't really have many comic creators. It's usually people doing like poster pinups. You
Mhm.
you have like crochet stuff. You have all this. You have anime stuff. That's always a big thing. Anime, Funko Pop people, toys, different stuff like
Yeah.
that. The smaller conventions, uh, again, I don't personally like to see it this way, but this is beneficial for people to know. Not a lot of like publishing competition. A lot of times.
Mhm. Interesting. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm publisher and writer. Like, and I don't draw. I don't even sell my like. I'll even do like little sketch cards or stuff like that because we'll do like a live spilled ink or something, and I
Mhm.
just give those away for free. I'm like, don't pay me for this. Like, just take this. Like, this art isn't worth paying for. Which maybe I should charge $5 or something, but it's insecurities at that point. But you're right. Like, I've tabled a lot this year. I've had a lot of really cool opportunities come my way, and I've gotten to get out a little bit more. Everything from like my local shop where I get to like do free comic book day to doing, we did Buffalo, we did Heroes, Baltimore's coming up and like hang out at SPX for a day. But it's one of those things where like you start to measure like, okay, this con was a flop, but I got like Heroes. Heroes I did not sell well. All of us were kind of busted on that. But I would love to go back to Heroes
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it was such a good like I got to meet so many people we've interviewed or just making new connections and just interacting with like friends and other creators, and that was so beneficial because I grew so much from those interactions. And you really got to like really like cement a lot of relationships and meeting people in person. Like if we got to meet in person, I'd be so hyped. We'd hang out,
Oh yeah,
we
yeah.
become buddies at that point. You know what I mean? Even though we basically already are. Like it's one of those things. It's like it's just a closer connection, and those memories and those moments mean so much, and they help you carry through being a creator. But if I did like all of my cons were the same result as Heroes, I would not have been like around. I wouldn't have been like I
Oh
needed
yeah,
to
yeah.
like make good
Well,
stuff.
it's
Yeah.
it's just like a looking at it in a logistics stance, like not just
Mhm.
like business wise, just like your personal finances.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
you don't want to be at the area of like oh crap, like I have
I can't even
to
print again.
I
You
have
know what I mean?
I
Like, I
can't
can't.
I can't print again, or like home amenities sort of stuff where it's like, well, we gotta sorry, honey, we gotta drop Netflix, we gotta drop Hulu, like we gotta drop this stuff
Con
right now.
season's coming up. We better start saving. Like,
Yeah,
cutting everything off in January. Yeah.
yeah.
That's yeah, that's people kind of don't acknowledge that too much, or maybe not acknowledge, they just don't realize the cost of going to a convention. I mean, when you're
Oh
talking
yeah, yeah.
hotels, when you're talking food, and a lot of times they're in these big cities and everything where you're just like, to me, it reminds me of tour. Like I would have to find like the cheapest hotel and the best bargain. And sometimes you have to live off of like a, like a 7-Eleven or luckily, I think at Heroes there was like a Whole Foods around the corner, so I was just getting like Whole Food
Oh, okay,
sandwiches
that's
because
cool.
they were like $3-4, and I was like, I'm just gonna live off of this, like it'll work. Or you get a pizza, and then it's gonna last you the whole day because you're like, at least I got
Yeah,
some
yeah.
food next to me. You have to think like that, honestly, as a creator
Oh
at
yeah.
these cons, because it's the only way you're gonna be like, well, I gotta pay my artist, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. It's still gas, I drove 6 hours to get here.
Yep.
And none of these things are cheap right now in like the economy overall. So like any
No.
dollar that you give a creator, just know, it goes a far way, audience. Like it
Oh
goes
yeah.
so far. Like anything helps. Um, but you were saying also like, you know, finding finding the avenue and the catch as a writer and a creator to bring people to your table. Like what is your little hook that you're able to do to make sure people are walking up to you and you're able to start engagement and like really kind of formulating that sale in that sense?
A key thing. I mean, there's multiple key things. One key thing I'll say, and this isn't like just because I'm on a CWS show right here, but banners. And the reason I bring that up is I did get my banners from CWS
Oh,
like
sick.
a
That's
year or so ago.
awesome to
So
hear.
banners are a key thing, and especially like catchy stuff. It's one
Mhm.
thing to have like this and then like a thing of words or whatever, but if you have a catchy image, like I'm not trying to hype up my table or anything, but like I have a front table banner, like a 5 foot table banner that has a very catching horror image. It's
Ooh.
it's it's a panel from an issue of Dismay Avenue, and it looks like kind of like Junji Ito type art. The
Ooh,
artist
that's sick.
Gaetano Matriglio, his art style is fantastic in that story. But it's this little kid like reaching out of this like black vortex that's like pulling him in, sort of thing. He's like horrified to where I mentioned that. So one, you have like a retractable banner in the back or something, like something big that people can see if they're like 10, 15 yards away, or maybe they're on another aisle and they see it across the aisle or whatever. You have that. But you also, again, I it's so weird uh thinking like this, but at the end of the day, we kind of have to. This seems kind of scummy what I'm about to say, but there people just sometimes there's people that just want to look down and just walk through
Yeah.
the artist alley or the vendor stuff because they know they're about to be like, oh, excuse me, oh,
Yep.
excuse, or
Yeah.
like, hey, how's it going, that sort of thing. They're looking down to not make eye contact. To help with that looking down, have that front table banner because it's
Ooh.
it's kind of floor level, and that's what I have with that image, that little kid reaching out of the black vortex. It's right there to where even if they're looking down, they at least see that, at least kind of like catches their
Yeah,
eye, sort of
yeah,
thing.
get a double take
um
out of it. Yeah, that's brilliant,
yeah,
dude.
yeah.
That's smart. That's really smart. Yeah.
I mean, there's multiple things, and I mentioned that, and I hate saying that sort of stuff, but it's a lot of times with your table, you do have to think about like people's psychology, sort of thing,
Yeah.
of like putting yourself into other people's perspective and then
Mhm.
approaching it, because that's one thing is like most people. I'm okay with this, but I know there are a lot of people that are not okay with like, hey, excuse me, you got the time? Let me show you this thing. Like people don't really want to deal with that. There are some people that don't really want to deal with that,
No,
but sometimes
100%. Some
simply,
people are scared and timid, and they're just like
yeah,
they
yeah,
look like at you like you just scared. You're offering
yeah.
them like drugs or something, like they're not fun ones. You know what I mean? You're just like, no, get
Hey,
away. Like I don't want to
look
talk.
in the
Yeah,
jacket.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah. It's one of those things where like just be like kind. If they make eye contact, sort of thing, just like, hey, how's it going? And like kind of pull them in through conversation that way. But a lot of times it is the signage. It is like I didn't make these covers, so I can hype them up as much as I want. I don't like
Mhm.
hyping up stuff I do, but the cover artists for my books do amazing, beautiful covers. This one is always like an eye-catching one.
Oh,
Disney Avenue
yeah.
number 2,
Oh,
like,
that's
if you
sick.
see that, I mean, like, let's say it's this far away, like,
Yeah.
it's eye-catching, as well as, like, various cover stuff or color stuff, because I use, you can get them at, like, oh, what's it called? What's the art store? It's not Hobby Lobby.
Oh, like
Michael's.
Michael's. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, Michael's, you can get these little stands kind of to, like, put your comic on, and it just makes it pop and stuff to where
Or I'm gonna do a little
it looks
promo hype up,
pasteboard.
but, like, you could get wait, where's my thing? You could get a
Yes,
Wham stand over here, and you could put up all
yes,
of your books on display. Yeah, there you go. Wham
exactly.
stand.
And, well,
Yeah.
that's even better because, like, with that, you can have the logo and stuff. You can
Yeah.
have the logo of the book and stuff like that. That's even better. But put your book on it, and also with covers, always go for eye-catching, popping covers. Like with
Mhm.
horror stuff that I do, like I again, I didn't do the art, so I can hype them up
Yeah.
and brag about these people because it's not me. But Kaz Illustration, who did this,
Oh, it's sick.
it catches your eye because
Mhm.
white background. Not a lot of comics have that. The reason I mentioned that is I've had this on comic shelves before, and I've went to the back of the store, basically where you can see the shelf, and kind of the first comic you see is this because it just pops out.
Dude, that's
Compared to all the other colors, you need that thing that, like, what's the first thing that catches your eye on a rack of 50 comics, sort of thing.
That's really interesting you say that. And Alex and I were making, new template cards and promo cards for the show. And we're noticing how many books have like, blue and like, like a lot of books have blue. In fact, there's Cybersync that's a
Yeah,
variant cover blue. But you know what? Actually, this cover right here, Apollo City Comics, the and Outcome the Comics, the punk anthology, dude, this one sells the most and people are immediately attracted to this book. And I always wonder why. I'm always wondering why this book, because especially because it's the first book we put out. And I'm like, Cybersync is new, Shadow Anthology is new, but like they see this black and white cover and they are immediately attracted to it. I have more punk anthology sales than any other book. And, even my Teenage Babylon Ashcan, it's black and white. I'm able to push that really easily for some reason. And I think it's exactly what you're saying. For some reason, like a white cover really just grabs people's attention for some I don't even know how. Maybe it's a psychological thing we should look into at some point. But that's
yeah.
very interesting you point that out.
And it's not one of those things where it's like dissing or bashing any of the other books'
Oh, yeah.
content, sort of stuff, like whether it's any of my other books or any of your other books or whatever it may be. But it's what's the first thing that catches the person's eye, and it's
Mhm.
usually the cover. Like they don't see the interiors until they walk over, and you're like, hey, it's a display copy, you can flip through it if you like,
Yeah.
and then they'll see the interiors, then they'll see the work put in. But uh don't judge a book by its cover. But when people are walking like 3 miles per hour down Artist Alley, they're going to judge a book by its cover.
Yep. Yeah, it's an immediate thing. Like that cover is going to grip them and they're going to be attracted to it or not. And that's like the first part of your sale. It's what you're saying, banners, getting a first overall attraction. Am I with this vibe or not? And you could typically look at something immediately and know like that's for me, that's not for me, that's for me, that's not for me, or like judging what they're selling in general too.
Yeah, yeah,
But and then they'll like, that'll catch their eye, and then they'll look down at your table and be like, what is this person offering? Like what sometimes even when I talk to creators, I'm like, I find their stuff because I found their banner or their, table setup. And then everything else will start to like be clearer after that because you don't really notice the fine details of a lot of things until you're right there in front of it. But you have to capture their attention first. I also give away bookmarks a whole lot. That's a good method to kind of
oh
like
yeah, oh yeah,
get things going, offering a free bookmark, like just getting someone's attention and being like, oh, free bookmark, if you want to have one, come check it out. And then I'll be like, what kind of stuff do you like to read? And then I kind of distinguish that and I try to relate them to a book I have on the shelf. And I guess that's a benefit of being a publisher too is that I have, Punk Anthology, Cyber Sync, Shadow Anthology. Now we have Hyperforce, we have manga book, Soul Catchers coming out this year. So we'll have like a good variety. You can almost attribute your books to a customer, or find a way into that. But that first, like, just lock in of engagement of, here's a free thing for you to walk away with no matter what. There's some contact info. You may or may not look into it, but that plants a seed. Kind of like with that sale you made. One person bought a book and they liked it so much, and you planted that seed and they came back for the second one. Sometimes you
Oh
have to
yeah.
do that with early sales. People first day of cons, not necessarily wanting to shop right away. You give them a freebie, plant that seed, so you want them to come back Saturday or Sunday and see
Oh
what
yeah.
they can snag too.
That's a smart idea. I've never thought about that because Fridays can be rough for cons. They
Yeah.
can be. Or what I'll say is at least Saturday and Sunday is usually a lot better for vendors and artist alley people. Saturdays
Hmm.
and Sundays compared to a Friday. Uh,
Hmm.
because especially if it's people that's like they have the weekend pass, they're going to take their time. Saturday and Sundays when they'll do the shopping. But that's a good idea. Yeah, like giving out uh, free stuff or like very discounted stuff on like the early access type stuff.
Or
Planting that
bundles.
seed,
We've done
bundles.
bundles
Yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah.
I think I do like all three anthologies for like 50 bucks. And I lose out
That's
like on
good.
10 bucks that way, 5, 10 bucks. But it's like I'd rather lose out on 5 or 10 bucks of like my profit, but like at least I got 3 books out there in the universe. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of a
You
pro too.
you got 3 books out there, and you likely just got a fan
Yeah.
who's going to
Yeah. And if
follow
they're
along
buying
and
3
check
books
out your
too, you
stuff.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the cool part. Yeah. Or,
And
I don't know, do you table a lot with other people as well too? Like share tables and
uh
everything?
not with other artists yet. Eventually I will, because hey, that also helps with the cost sort of thing.
Costs. Yeah.
But I table with a buddy of mine, which I will say in the 2 years I've done Artist Alley and stuff, I'm not like a veteran in
Yeah.
Artist Alley. But
Same.
in the 2 years I've done it, like having someone with you, whether it's another artist or a buddy or something, is like, at least for me, crucial, because
Same.
there with any con, even the big cons, there will be lull periods
Yeah. And
where
they hurt.
they definitely hurt. But if you have a buddy with you where you can just like shoot the breeze sort of thing
Yeah.
and just like talk and all that stuff, it makes it go by so much faster. You're still having fun and you're not like, oh
Just on your phone,
no.
because you're also trying to avoid, like, looking down yourself, you know what I
Yes,
mean? You're trying
yes.
to avoid just being stuck on your phone. I know we already do social media and promote or, check stuff, but, like, when you go by Artist Alley and you find the creators that are just not grabbing attention or just, like, looking down the whole time, you're not gonna give that creator nearly as much attention, and they're not gonna have
No.
nearly as much success. And if you're
Yeah.
you're vibrant, full of energy, and your friend is there, kind of you're riding, like you said, riding that wave, having that energy going, it's going to make it better for you, your experience, and it's going to make it better for everybody who's coming up to you to, like, you'll get to crack jokes, you get to team up, you get to, like, it turns into like a segment almost sometimes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And even then we've done, when I did Heroes, I was tabling with John O'Burke and Jeff Lawrence, and what we did was like, okay, like, if people were coming across and we were all struggling with sales, and that's when we started doing bundles as well. I do this a lot with Doug Knight whenever I table with him, and Mark from Lesser Known. But we're like, okay, what if we do all three of our first issues? Like, one, I think one person sold theirs for 10, another was selling theirs for 5, I was selling mine for like 5 or 10. And then you just kind of like mash that together into like a good solid like $20 bucket, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Because
yeah.
that's an easy bill to pull out, no change or
Yeah.
anything. And it's like 20 bucks, you get one of each of our books, and then we all win from it.
Oh yeah,
um
yeah.
Doing things like that just really does increase your chances of success and making an extra couple bucks you would have missed out on overall.
It's crucial, as well as with the sell. Like there's bundle sales, and even if it's something else, always like adding a little extra. Like
Hmm.
even if it doesn't really cost you much, like unit cost or whatever isn't really much, just adding something, like
Yeah.
whenever I sell a comic, I'll always include, I'll be like, hey, you can also get a free bookmark or a free
Yeah.
sticker sort of thing. And they're like, oh, sweet. Like it adds to that person's experience sort of thing. You're enjoying that experience, enjoying that time, but just helping that person have an even better time at a convention, because like, oh sweet, like I got this thing and I also got this free thing.
Yeah.
um but
I do that with
also
the punk
like,
anthology. I try to
yeah,
give
yeah,
out
yeah,
these posters over here. You can see. I had so many extra from the Kickstarter. I just started like every bundle purchase they would get, or pretty much any punk anthology purchase, they'd get a free poster. I was like, choose your color you want, and you get a free poster with it. And then what's cool about that? Like now I'm going to be on their wall. So like people
yes,
aren't just going to
yeah,
have their book in hand. They're going to look up at their wall, hopefully, potentially, yeah, they're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, Apollo, like I want to check out their books and blah blah blah," and they know about it, and it kind of spreads word. So like, yeah, the freebie thing crucial. I feel like if you have stickers, if you could sacrifice or even make a little zine, like a little
yeah,
five
yeah,
pager
yeah.
preview or something that does black and white, just cheap, very low
Well,
cost. That's a good word.
that's that's what I had mentioned before, of like, me and my buddy made a small
Mm.
mini comic. Like it's just on one page, and then we're getting it through like good printing. It's just on one page, then you fold it, do certain slits and stuff, and
Oh yeah,
staple it.
yeah, yeah.
um
Those so tedious, dude. I
exactly,
would do that
there,
like crazy to promote Teenage
yes,
Babylon. Yeah. My
like
girlfriend would
that
hate it.
stuff
I'd be like, "We're
is,
doing, mini comics tonight," and she's like, "Oh god, just folding for 5
because
hours."
it
I'm
takes
like,
so
"Yes."
long to fold them all and stuff. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, he just placed an order, and I think they're coming in, and it's like 1,000 of them. So like, definitely it'll it's not like we're going to be doing them all in one night
Yeah.
or like multiple nights. It's like we'll do like 20 at a time whenever
Mhm.
we have the time, sort of thing.
It's good to
But
do at the con too, when you're just
oh
those
yeah,
lull
yeah.
periods, we're just like,
That's
"Well, I guess
that's
we're
what
gonna fold zines," like
we had talked about that. We're like, because he does art, so for him, he could pull out his tablet and do art and stuff. But as a writer, I don't do art, and like I can't just like pull out my laptop and start writing, because when I'm writing, like I got to be laser focused, sort of thing, and I don't want to be rude and just like block out the customer because I'm trying
Yeah.
to write a story or whatever. But this is something I can actually physically do during those lull periods. Is actually fold up these mini comics, staple them, that sort of stuff. It gives me something to do all while I'm talking to a buddy, sort of thing. But yeah,
Mhm.
those mini comics, I mean, for us, unit cost is like 15 cents,
Yeah.
if that. To where it's like, yeah, yeah, we'll just give them out, sort of thing, and that's very helpful. It's a funny little 6-page comic. Each page is its own panel, sort of thing. But yeah, just something small like that cost us basically nothing.
It's more
Has
time, like, it's more time focused than, like, cost focus, you know what I mean?
Oh
You're
yeah,
just
yeah,
like, "I just
yeah,
gotta put the work in now." Or, like,
a hundred
formatting it
percent.
to make sure, you have the way I do it, I do a mini comic where you have the comic on one side, and on the back, you unfold it, and it's like a poster. So it's like a
Yeah, yeah.
flyer and a comic at the same time, yeah.
This one, I'm not gonna open it because I don't want people to see my passport stuff. But
Okay.
this one is like very much like passport sized, where like you
Yeah.
flip horizontally and you read it horizontally. You read
Oh,
like top, bottom, flip it
that's
top, bottom.
cool.
Because I haven't really seen ones like that. And also the
No.
way we're doing this story, having like a horizontal, like widescreen image for each page works real well for this. So this is pretty much how we're doing it. It will be a little bit smaller than a passport, basically.
We know that running a crowdfunding campaign is tough, and that's why Comics Wellspring wants to help you out. We offer an exclusive crowdfunding partnership program when you print with us and mention us in your campaigns. When you use our program, you'll get a discount on printing and a social media shout out to help promote your project. For more details, click the link in the description. And now, back to our conversation with Brandon Ingram. That's sick. Yeah, I mean, it's how do you find like really beneficial and innovative ways to find promotion, because I mean,
Yeah.
after a while, things just, well, we were talking about costs, costs add up, and it doesn't matter what you're doing in comics. If you're paying artists, that's going to be a fee. If you're printing comics, that's a fee. If you're tabling, that's a fee, but once you invest in some of this stuff, it does start to work itself out. Like if you're aiming to get a banner, I feel like a banner is such a crucial thing. And I felt
Yes.
honestly, it
Oh
feels
yeah.
so legit once you get a banner too. Like
Yeah.
once I
Yeah.
got the Apollo one, I got to table with it. I was just like, I kind of always want this out. My girlfriend was like, we're not doing that. Like, but it's one of those things. It just feels like your table space is your pop-up shop, and people need to
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
think of it that way. Like Anya Driffel, she's an awesome artist. I encourage everyone to look her up. We did an episode with her as well. When I go and I saw her at Heroes, I saw her booth and I knew it was her because it was this insane like hot pink booth, and she even stacks stuff up, and she has like a wall thing where she just kind of sets it up on the sides and it goes above her,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's just like you feel so like it kind of reminds me of on Peanuts, the when they would see the doctor, you know what I mean, the 5 cent
Oh
thing.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
sort of reminded me of, but it stood out. And if you have you this hot pink thing that's just like in your face, you're like, what does this person have to offer? And also it's a vibe check. Like you're going to be
Oh yeah.
attracted to that or not, and that's going to help it make it easier for you to like talk to people. And I think more people will organically walk up to you because of what you're presenting in front of them. They're interested. They want to see what this show is about. So I think thinking of it that way, kind of like how those traveling salesmen would do, park their carriage and open up shop. That's essentially what you're doing, is selling out of a
Yeah. Yeah.
van, but it's a table.
And you have, with the average convention, you have very limited space. The
Yeah,
average convention's a 6 by 5 sort of space.
it isn't a
So
lot.
yeah, it's really not. And especially if it's like a big convention where they squeeze you all together.
Hmm.
If you have to go to the bathroom, you're just like
Oh yeah.
easing your way behind people's posters and banners and stuff. So making the most of that little space you have is definitely crucial, especially in Artist Alley, especially if it's a bigger
Hmm.
convention, because there are so many. One, you're in a aisle. You're not in the main aisle. They're walking down a main aisle and then they turn into your little aisle sort of
Yep.
thing. And then within that aisle, there's 10 of y'all or more sort of thing. So just making the most of that space to
Yeah.
attract the people that do turn down that aisle.
Yeah, and it's well, how much do you sell like Gallows Man like when you table? What's
When I
your price per
table,
book?
I've thought about going up. I usually sell it for $8. Pretty much all my comics are $8.
Makes sense.
Um, ultimately it helps. It covers the costs and stuff, of the unit costs, and also helps a little bit go towards the convention cost or whatever it may be. But usually $8 is what I sell the comics for.
That's solid. And I mean, okay, just for like some math while we're, talking tabling, if you had a table that was $700, the one that the example you gave earlier,
Yeah.
you divide that by 8, that's 87.5. Like there's who is selling like 90 copies of their book over a
Well,
weekend? You know what I mean?
also think about that as well. So you're having to sell 88 copies to reach that or whatever. Also factoring in like per unit cost.
Yeah.
Um, like because
You know,
you are paying for those
that.
books from the
Yeah.
the
Yep.
publisher, so you have to factor that in as well. To where, like, sure, the Artist Alley table $700. Let's say I sell that much, but unit costs, you're deducting like probably at
But
least $100 or more sort of thing, or you'll have to add that much.
yeah. Yeah, and that's like we're not even talking hotel, we're not talking food.
No.
Like the average, I mean, like an over expense is probably, but you're almost every con is going to cost about like 1,500 when you consider everything involved, from printing, travel, food, tabling, like, extra accessories. Say you do want to go buy like the wham stand, he has a cool spinner rack now, and that's like $70. Like some of these things are permanent or it's a one-time buy. Banners, tablecloths, those are cool. Like being convention ready and getting these materials ahead of time is going to benefit you, or at least piece by piece. Maybe make it a goal for
Oh
you. Like
yeah.
this year, I'm getting a banner. Next year, I'm doing a tablecloth. In 6 months, I'm going to get wham stands to like display my stuff. Like setting up those goals, but you add all that and factor to what you could spend in a whole year. Like, dude, we invest a ridiculous amount of money in our books, but it's like the only way. It's like how you got to
Yeah,
break
yeah.
into it. It's starting a business. And there's probably your intro year, like my intro year this year, I was just trying to give away stuff at a certain point or discounting, because I was like, at least it's out there in the universe. But the more I was tabling, the more I was like, I can't, like, I gotta be strict this con. I can
Oh
only
yeah, yeah.
I gotta sell this for $5 no matter what, and you gotta be stiff. But once you get to that point, it's also a confidence meter too. I think a lot of people, especially me, I was like, I just want to give it out for free to like just get it out there. But it's also because I wasn't totally sure if I could, make that sale. But if you have confidence in your work, and if
Yes.
you stick to it,
Yep.
people are going to recognize that and feel that and be like, okay, you $15, I'll pay $15 for an anthology, $20. It's more of like, be proud of your stuff and know that the price you put on it, well worth it. And
Yeah.
yeah, $8 is a lot compared to Marvel and DC's, but you know what? They're catching up. $5 a comic is still
Yeah.
pretty
And
damn
also,
expensive.
what I will say with like Marvel and DC is, I said $8. This is a 64-page comic. There's
Hmm.
60 plus the cover, front cover, back interior cover, 60-page comic. So with Marvel and DC, you're paying four, maybe $5 for a 20-page comic. This is $8, and there's no ads really in it.
Yeah,
Like, because that's another thing. Like Marvel DC, I say 20 pages, and then they have like 8 pages of ads, and then they'll advertise the comic as like, hey, we got a 32-page comic. It's like,
yeah.
okay,
No, you don't.
technically yes, but story wise, no.
Right. Yeah.
That's why like Kickstarters, or if I'm like doing tables and stuff, I always mention like, hey, like if they're flipping through it and they see like $8 or whatever, well, usually they see $8 and it's a comic person, they're like, this is $8, like that's pretty good for $8, because
Yeah.
they think about the Marvel or DC thing where it's like,
Hmm.
I'm paying $5 for a 20-page story sort of thing. It's like
And
60 pages.
supporting like an upcoming artist and creator. And I think I really do. Like, it's crazy how many people and different cons have different vibes. Some people like do not care about indie books at cons. Like, and
Yeah,
unless you're going to like a zine fest or an indie fest, people aren't really thinking about, oh, I'm gonna go spend this at Artist Alley and I hope I find, 5 new indie creators this con. Like those people are like the slimmest percentage of
yeah,
people that
yeah.
show up to cons. Mostly they're going like, oh, I want to get, Adam Kubert's signature. And I finally get to, meet so and so and try to get a sketch. And oh, I'll pay $500 for this sketch by blah, blah, blah. But then you're like, let me sell you a book for $10. And they're like, nah. You're just like,
What
dude, like we're all those big time creators beginnings. You know what I mean? And I
yeah,
think a
yeah.
lot of people forget that too.
Oh, 100%. But what I will say is like, in those instances where it's something like Heroes Con, where like the focus is on comics. I know, crazy, a comic convention to be focused on comics. We don't see that too much nowadays. But those, the plus side on those are like, people are there for comics.
Hmm.
Now, they're probably most definitely not there for your indie comic, like not saying specifically you, but I just mean like in general, like my
Yeah.
indie comic, like indie comics in general, they're most likely not there for that. They're most likely there for uh, uh, the big artists that are there, the big DC or Marvel artists that are there to get signature sketches, that sort of thing. The plus side with that though is they are into comics to where they are more likely
Hmm.
to look at Artist Alley. Whereas if you have something like a big convention where the big draw are the celebrity guests, and I have no issue with that. Like it's the attracting thing, and people want
Yeah.
to meet their favorite celebrities, all that stuff. But that's the reason they're there. Is they
Hmm.
heard Mark Hamill is there, or they heard this person is there, or that person is there, and they're going there. And whatever the celebrity is, you're usually looking at $100 for a signature, uh, $250 if it's like signature photo op, and then sometimes it's more than that.
Yep.
And they also, because it's a bigger convention, they probably paid like $50 for the day ticket, if not more.
Yep.
Then they also got to buy lunch, which is sometimes a little bit pricey.
Or if you're
To
eating
by
con
the end of
food,
it,
you're spending $60 on like the worst
a
pizza
hundred
you've ever
percent.
had. Like,
Yeah, yeah, 100%, to where like after they got the one or two celebrities, their signatures and photo ops, they got the pass, they got the food. They're spending like $300+ by that point, to where they're going to be very, very hesitant to even consider walking down Artist Alley.
yep.
Um, so that's the one thing with those, is like, one, they're not there for comics. They're there for the celebrities, and comics are just a backdrop. They're in the background sort of thing. And hopefully they'll accidentally walk down Artist Alley and check it out and be like, oh, that's cool. But whenever it's a convention that is focused on comics, I feel people are more willing to at least look at Artist Alley. Not
Yeah.
saying buy, but at least look at it.
Mhm. Yeah, interact a little bit, and that's something that we're trying to like really change in the industry. We have great conventions like IC3.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
pure indie comics. It's very focused and it's run by great people. Matt Sardo, who does Monkeys Fighting Robots and whatnot. And having conventions like that pop up more and more, I really love. Like
yeah,
Baltimore Comic Con this year, we set up this whole like scavenger hunt where you had to like go and hear the pitch from the creator, and until you hear the pitch and have them sign off after they say the pitch, that's when you get like credit for that scavenger hunt. We're trying to
that's
find
awesome.
more avenues that way to be like, how do we get people to not just like walk up and everyone and be like, oh yeah, I got a scavenger hunt. Can you sign this so I could go get this prize? It's like, no, like I want you to be in, I want you to, kind of slyly get interested into all these creators. And
Oh
if you
yeah,
really are worth it, like, and you really want, like, you hear them all out, like, you get this cool prize for it. But like finding ways to get people to go in there and just like listen to what we have to offer. It's such a battle because I always compare it to this thing where it's just like you have like your audience in the stadium, like, and it's just like literally this, you're the one person you're trying to sell to is center stage, and then you have the stadium full of indie creators just waving their book trying to get that one person's attention, and that's literally what it feels like, and you have to pick
yeah,
one out of like thousands. But the more you start to like go to each table and be like, oh, I'm kind of interested in this, like I'm going to follow up with this person. I want to help try to plant seeds for everybody so that they have some people go back to them. And I think CWS, the more cons we work with and, do this type of thing with, the more beneficial it'll be for creators. Cause, half the battle is just getting someone to hear your pitch. And,
yeah,
there's
yeah,
positives and negatives to that. One, they might not be remotely interested, but like two, they're going to be interested. And now they're going to be like, damn, am I going to get this? Or am I going to go buy this, you know, t-shirt or whatever? It's like, well, you
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
hear the perks of like, this person worked hard on their book. I should go check this out and just give it a shot. And growing that indie community is what it's all about. And I think we're starting to. I think it's finally starting to come into play where people are realizing that there's more than Marvel DC. Comics are just a great medium and we need to devour it. I really truly feel the real comic book fans are the people that go and buy indie comics because
Oh yeah, yeah.
that's where their truest art, I really feel, is. There's no gatekeeping, there's no anything. It's full freedom and expression with indie comics.
Well, at the end of the day as well, like, that is the future of comics. Even Marvel and DC, like, there a decent bit of people that go to Marvel and DC started out in indie. So it's
Mhm.
one of those things where like you're one, helping indie comics and helping that thrive. But if you are like a Marvel DC guy and that's strictly it, helping the indie stuff helps your thing, because
Mhm.
one of these guys is going to be in that position one day,
Yep.
if they get the support they need, sort of thing. It's very crucial, and I love what CWS is doing, as well as like all these other like shows that are popping up that are like geared toward comics, because like 10 years ago it's like it's impossible to
Nothing. Yeah.
find, sort of thing. But I think that is a crucial thing to have, is like I'm all for the pop culture
Yeah.
conventions and stuff like that, but I do want more of these comic conventions And I do think they are coming back or kicking into swing sort of thing, where it's just it's great to see. It's super beneficial for us. It's super beneficial for those that support comics, because I mean, even comic fans who aren't comic creators, I've heard a lot of them say, like, yes, they like going to the pop conventions and getting this celebrity's autograph or this celebrity's
Mhm.
autograph. But those that are into comics, not creators, just fans, they vocally say, like, this stuff, it's a comic convention, but it's not about comics anymore.
And that's
So
so weird
so
how you get that comic like, "Oh, there's a Comic-Con in town," and you're just like,
yeah, yeah.
it's not a Comic-Con, it's
Yeah.
definitely a convention." I mean, like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
we're talking about horror conventions. I feel like the horror conventions have it right. Like, they're
Yeah,
just like,
yeah.
"We are a horror convention." And what do we
It's
have? Everything horror, you know what I
a
mean?
mix of
Like
horror.
yeah.
We have horror movie people, we have
Mhm.
horror TV people, we have horror merchandise, t-shirts, all this stuff. We also have horror novelists. We also
Yeah.
have horror comic creators. Sometimes we have horror video game studios and stuff, where
Yeah.
it's like I think, yeah, I think that's a good way to go about it, because you're at least like being honest in the titling of your convention sort of thing.
Exactly. That's really what it comes down to. Because you go to some of these and you're like, "Oh, you guys just toss comic on there," and there's just like
Yeah.
3 selling comics, you know what I mean? There was no intention or focus to try to get more comics into the scene in general. Booby, I can't kiss you right now. My cat will headbutt me until I kiss him sometimes, so that'll be fun.
But that's the
But
thing, is like there are some conventions I do that, like, they aren't comic conventions, but they don't really label themselves as that. Like, comics is a part of that, but they may call it like a fan fest or a
and that's
pop culture
appropriate.
fest or whatever. I'm okay with that, because it feels genuine, it feels honest, and
Mhm,
a lot of times, like, these are smaller conventions and stuff, and like, it's a good time for a comic creator or anyone there. Some of I've only done 2 years of conventions, but I've
mhm.
done a dozen plus conventions. I mentioned before, smaller conventions are kind of the thing I love most. The I This might change. I'm so on 3-day conventions now, like, just
Oh,
me
they're rough.
personally.
I mean, they're
On the
rough in general.
Friday, Saturday,
Yeah,
and Sunday.
yeah.
I prefer a 2-day,
Yes.
but 1-day conventions are actually pretty good as well. Like,
Yeah,
they're
IC3,
fun.
1 day, you know what I mean?
Yes,
Honestly,
yes.
because you show up to a con typically on, like, either a Thursday or Friday. If you're there Thursday, cool, you get to set up a little early, but if you show up on Friday, you set up, and then then you set up, and then you're there all day. You probably take a lunch break, and then you go, and you're like, "Alright, I gotta be on, I gotta be for the audience." You're doing that from what, sometimes cons start out between 1 to 3 p.m., and then they'll ride out to, like, 7 or 8 p.m., and then you show back up at like 10 a.m. the next day, or
Yeah.
it starts at 10, so you got to be there like
Yeah,
9,
yeah.
9:30, and then you're riding that wave until like 6 to 8 p.m., and then you're showing back up on Sunday, and then you're riding it out from anywhere from you know 10 to 12, AM, PM, and then you're writing that to whatever, like 4 to like 6, 7 p.m. on a Sunday. It's just a grind for 3 days. And you really like have to keep your momentum up to like
Oh, yeah.
ensure you're making sales, ensure you don't give like, that's one time you might get to meet somebody. And if you're a jerk
Yeah, yeah.
that one time on like a Saturday or Sunday, people will remember that. They're not gonna probably want to come back to you. So you have
Yeah.
to be like positive, you have to be like ready, you have to be talkative, you have to be like ready and know all your, sell lines, your log lines to sell your books. Like there's a lot of energy that goes into conventions.
Oh, yeah.
So I
That's the
I
thing with
can't stand 3-day conventions. Honestly,
with
they're
I'm right there. I wanted to test the waters first by putting it there. I'll be completely honest, I don't care to do 3-day
yeah,
conventions
it's just so
anymore.
tiring. I'm too old
It's
now, I think.
it's
Like
it's exhausting. Even if it's going great, it can be a
yeah.
great convention for you. And we're not doing a lot of physical stuff. It's not like physical labor or anything, but by the time you get back home Sunday night or Monday morning
Oh,
or whatever, you are like exhausted.
Oh my,
Like if you have
especially
a
that drive, depending if you drive home
yes.
that night and how far that I've done cons. I think we did Buffalo and then we left on Sunday and that was like a 7, 8 hour drive back home. And I know the last 2 hours, Mark and I were just like on fumes, like ready just to give up on life. But you're like, just one more hour of driving, we can make this. And dude, it takes days to recover from a con now. Like I'm
Oh
out
yeah.
until like Wednesday for sure. Just being like, I'm tired and grumpy and I don't want to move. Like
Well, that's why I like the 1 day or even 2 day. Like with a 1 day, it's like it's sometimes if it's not too far of a drive, sometimes it can just be all within a 24-hour thing in
yeah.
terms of you drive, you do the convention, you get back, you go to sleep, all within 24 hours, and it's
Yep.
great. And you're not super
Yeah.
exhausted by the end, and you had a good time.
Plus, it gives the
Like
pressure of, like, fans there too, like, you have 1
yeah,
day
yeah,
to purchase from these
to
people,
get
you
the
know what I
stuff.
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, 100%. Like I love 1 day ones. I live in like the South. And there's where I'm at, you gotta really
We're in the
search
South. I'm
for these
from
conventions.
Texas, so I totally feel you on that, where you have to just
I
drive, like, half a
yeah,
year to
yeah.
get anywhere.
I live in near Pensacola, Florida.
Oh, okay, cool,
And
cool.
where I live, there's not a lot of conventions.
Mhm.
Um, there's the big Pensacola one, but that's the one I had mentioned was the $700 artist facing.
Ah, there
Yeah.
you go. Yeah.
But so looking for all these, but like these small, sometimes country town 1 day conventions or 2 day conventions, like a lot of times can be great because these people, because there's no other conventions, this is like them in a candy shop sort of thing. They don't
Mhm.
take it for granted. I'm not saying people from the West Coast or like in New York take it for granted, but they definitely have more opportunity to go to this stuff.
Yeah.
They have like the big conventions, but they also have like a small convention every other weekend sort of thing that
Mhm.
they could go to. Here it's like there's one big convention and maybe like this is like 2 to 3 hour radius, maybe like 3 or 4
Yeah.
small conventions, like very small conventions, to where like they go to it. And also, me, since I don't have a lot of conventions, I'm also enjoying it as well. I take advantage of it to where it's like a equal footing. I'm happy to be there because I don't get all these opportunities because I don't have these conventions near me. They also enjoy it as well because same thing with them. They don't get to experience this that much. So I like those. And also the thing I love most, free comic book day.
Ah,
I
yeah.
love free comic book day. Like
I always hit up
till
my
I
shop.
am
It's the best.
till I am like no longer able to think and sit at a table when I'm an old man, geriatric age, I'm going to do free comic book day every year. Like
Yeah.
it's so much fun. It's so much fun, and it is a 1 day thing. Usually it depends on how long you want to stay, but usually it could be like a couple hours, 5 hours, six, seven
Mhm.
hours sort of thing. And a lot of times it's like your local shop or whatever, or a shop within like an hour from you, and it's all within 1 day, and you get back home like not super late at
Yep.
night, and it's like that was great.
This is the life. Yeah, no, yeah,
Yeah.
this is why I like doing it. No, dude, for us, plus free comic book day, you get, like, people who don't typically go to shops or conventions, you know, because it's they hear about
Yeah,
this, they
yeah.
want to take their family or their kids. It's a Saturday. It's like it's an event. So then these people are popping up at different shops, customers that would never walk in that door on a regular basis, or maybe they do one convention every eon or whatnot.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's like such a good advantage. And again, it's another avenue for you to chase. Teaming up with a shop. Find your local shop, become buddies with the owner. We have an episode with Eric, who runs Four Color Fantasies here in Winchester, Virginia. Really awesome, shop in general, but they support a lot of local artists. And so, like, interviewing him is like just such a cool thing because it's like he gave me a lot of opportunities when I moved to the side of the country, and it's like one of those perks, like. Go talk to your shop. You don't realize like what opportunities they'll open up for you. He's let me table twice already in the like whatever year and a half, 2 years I've lived here, and some of the biggest events they've had, he's given me opportunities. And you won't know unless you start, going out there and networking, which is
a hundred
again a
percent.
whole different part of conventioning and doing all this is how do you network? How do you meet these people? How do you grow? And that could be it's you have to kind of get out of your comfort zone sometimes, but
Oh
you
yeah.
make those friends, it'll pay off so well.
And I can't say it for every comic shop because I know there are some that are big
Right.
that there's only select amount of artists they can have in there or writers they can have in there on Free Comic Book Day. But for anyone, like, definitely reach out to the comic shop owner. Reach out like in advance. Don't reach out like a
Yeah.
couple days before
Yeah.
Free Comic Book Day sort of thing. But reach out in advance and just ask like, hey, like, tell them your thing, tell them about like what you do, the books you make or whatever. Just ask, would it be possible if I could possibly table at your shop? And most of them will be cool with that.
Hmm.
They're down with it. And I should also mention, like, most of them, I can't say this for all of them,
Right.
but all of the ones I've experienced, they don't, it doesn't cost.
Yeah.
They let
Yeah,
you
yeah, they're
be
just
there.
like, just be there. And that's the cool
Yeah.
part. I mean, dude, even I mean, what I love about Four Color too is like, well, they always do a raffle. And so people like, pay $5, $15, you get raffle stuff. And then they'll start to divide that for the artists there too. And I thought that was such a cool thing because even if like it was the first time I tabled there, I just had one book and it was just the punk anthology. And I made like an okay amount, like for just selling one
Yeah.
book
Yeah.
for $15, not bad. But then like getting that little snippet of like the raffle cash, I was like, I wasn't expecting this for one. I thought like the little amount I made was it, but that little bonus, like it was like such a cool and sweet thing. And you
That's
find
really
people who
cool.
do stuff like that, and you're like, damn, like thank you. Like they didn't have to do that. They could have kept those funds and put it towards the shop or do whatever. But they were like, oh no, you guys brought in business for us. And you guys are here all day. Like, here's some food, here's some water. Like, I hope you guys are doing great. And I was like, you guys are the sweetest people in the world. And you want to find shops that do stuff like that for you or something along those lines. You know what I mean? Just
Oh yeah.
support
Yeah.
you as a creator, like supportive indie shops, far and few in between because selling comics is hard for one. It doesn't matter if you're
Oh
an
yeah.
indie
Yeah.
creator
Yeah.
or if you're running a comic book shop. Some shops just focus on, older books and CGC
Right.
and stuff like that. My shop in El Paso, they have a very large military, like it's a military town. So he's right off of the base. So everyone would sell CGC books and, these like, of golden, silver age, bronze books. And that's what he sold. Indie books didn't sell well there, because
Yeah.
these people didn't really know about them and there was no way for them to know. So like he didn't really interact with that. And then I move up here and it's a total like culture shock change practically with the comic book shops. And I'm like, well, this makes sense though. Like look at the people
Yeah.
around us, look at the coast we're on, like all that stuff. So it's like find the shop that appeals to you and work with them. Even if you have to drive just a little bit out of the way, sometimes that's just going to be way more worth it, morale
It's worth it.
wise and mental wise for you as a
Oh
creator
yeah.
too.
Yeah. Yeah, the shop I go to isn't my closest shop. It's 40 minutes away for Free
Damn.
Comic Book Day, but it's fantastic because the owners of it are just so nice. Like you had mentioned, like these owners that go above and beyond for us when they don't have to. Like you had
Hmm.
mentioned the raffle and like giving you
Yeah.
guys like a cut of the raffle and stuff. Like you said, they didn't have to do that. And like with my shop, well, I mean, one, they don't have to let us set up at all and, and
Yeah.
let us be there for free at all. So that's one thing. Like that's amazing for that. And then like with my shop, like you had mentioned with yours, they like gave us pizza. Like they ordered
Yeah.
pizza. They're like, hey, like here's some pizza and stuff. It's like, oh, sweet. Like thank you. Like it's such an encouragement to where like I'll happily do that extra 20-30 minute drive or whatever because these guys are so great. Like they're being so great to me. I love it. And like you said, it's like it boosts your morale for the day.
Hmm.
Like
Yep.
even if Free Comic Day is a short thing, it could be 3 to 7 hours for depending on the people. Like it helps boost that 3 to 7 hours.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. So all those comic shops that are out there that uh, uh, one, let artists or writers table for free. Thank you. And then if there's all these little extra things that happen, like 110% thank you. Like
Yeah.
you guys don't have to do this at all, but we're extremely grateful because compared to some conventions and stuff, we don't get treated like this. You guys treat us very
Yeah.
nicely. We usually don't. We usually are like with a
Spending
lot of
on your own,
conventions.
dude. Like,
Exactly. Conventions, oh my gosh, like Fan Expo, like finding the bathroom, just trying to find the
yeah.
bathroom was so
Some of the first
insane.
things I scout out first. I'm like, all right, where are my
Yes.
exits? Where's the bathroom? Like, how do I
And the
navigate?
bathroom,
Like,
the issue was the bathroom that was closest to me. I walked there and the security guard's like, "Hold up." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Celebrity bathroom." I was like, "Well, where's the
what?
bathroom then?" He's like, "Points." And I look and it's like it's a giant auditorium and it's right outside it's like a civic center or like a giant bay center sort of thing. It's like
Oh
down
man.
there. So I basically walk like quarter to half a mile to find the bathroom sort of thing. So when it comes to usual conventions, you have in terms of the hierarchy of what the showrunners value and care about in terms of treating people, it's usually like celebrities, voice actors, that, vendors, and then artist alley people.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, we're like
usually what it
right
is.
bottom
Yeah.
of everything. Yeah, no vibes, man. And it's wild because I think all of us feel this and experience that whole artist alley dilemma, and it's it's wild how like no matter what, like somehow comics get like the bad end of the stick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Artists get the bad end of stick somehow, and just any category, if it doesn't matter, pay, rights, AI, all sorts of like, so just in general, like art just gets like the very bottom of the totem pole, but it's the thing everyone aspires for and loves. And we're
Yeah.
like, well, maybe you should treat us all a little bit better. We'd put out more, like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's one of those. But dude, this has been so enlightening. And I know we didn't even get to talk about like Gallows Man or
Oh
creations and
no,
stuff
it's
like
all
that.
good,
But
dude.
like this was such a fun like con talk.
Oh
And I
yeah.
think it's needed for so much of our audience who's experiencing cons for the first time, multiple times. It's one of those things where sometimes you just feel really alone, or maybe it's just my book that's not selling. Maybe it's just this,
Yeah.
when it's
Yeah.
like it's really none of that. It's
No.
really just a factor of so many different things, and you just haven't found the right convention for you. And I hate hearing that answer for anything. Like, oh, you just haven't found the right one for you. It's a horrible answer, but it's true, which is
It's
kind of
true.
crappy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's you just got to keep on doing it, and it's part of the grind. But just know we're all suffering with you, or winning with you. And
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
cool part too. Sometimes, dude, Heroes was a flop for me, but like some creator, Morgan Heron, I mean, that kid sells like crazy no matter what because he's
Yeah.
adorable.
Yeah.
But like he sold so many books that weekend, and I was like, man, like you could take that two ways. You could be like, I'm really jealous, and that pisses me off that you're making sales and I'm not. Or you could be like, dude, this kid is killing it, and Morgan is
Yeah.
killing it, and just be happy and ecstatic that somebody is selling comics. And it wasn't just, it was all these factors, but like be happy that like there's an audience. It just probably didn't find
Comics
you
are
in that
still
giant thing.
big.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
It's
the
it's it's
win.
something
People
encouraging. Yeah.
selling. Exactly. Like never take it as like a negative thing. It's more of like, well, maybe the show wasn't for me. Maybe it's not my audience. Maybe this region isn't what I'm into. Because then I went to Buffalo and like I killed it in Buffalo, man. I can't wait to go back there. They were totally into punk rock comics. So that's different, different sides of the country, different,
Yeah.
types of people. So many factors come into play. But take it as a business, bolster up your stuff, treat it like a pop-up shop, get your banners, get your tablecloths, set yourself up for success, get your wham stands, anything you can to like attract attention. And I think you really were very concise on like what would help people succeed at a con. And it's trial and error over and
Oh yeah.
over, just like making a comic, you know, just over and over. You just got to keep doing it and it'll be fun. But yeah, man, you have a Kickstarter that's probably wrapping up as this episode airs. It's the Gallows Man issues 1, 2, 3. We'll put a link here at the bottom for you as well. But why don't you let us know where we could find your work and anything else that you might be up to this year or maybe planning for next year as well.
Yeah, yeah. So Kickstarter for Gallows Man 1 through 3. Basically, Adam West Batman meets Inglorious Bastards. It's the short. That's the thing I say at the conventions when people are like, "What's this?" It's Adam West
And
meets
that's a good thing to do. We
Inglorious
should have talked
Bastards.
about that. Know your one sentence sell
Have
point.
have like less than an elevator pitch. Elevator pitch is
Yeah.
usually 20 to 30 seconds. Have a 1 to 2 sentence thing you can say to people, and also have those things where it's like it's this meets that, these familiarity things that
Hmm.
people know, so that they can then associate it with your work because they don't know your work, but they know
Right.
this other stuff. So
I
so
mean,
that's definitely a
Teenage
crucial part.
Babylon, I do, every time I pitch Teenage Babylon, it's a cosmic punk rock love story. Like that's it. That's
Yeah,
all I
yeah,
say. Sell point. Like if you want to know more, we'll go more. But like cosmic punk rock love story encapsulates it all. Find a way to deliver that. Batman
100%.
66 meets Inglorious Bastards, sold. Like I see it. I
Yeah,
vibe with both those things. Hyped. It's a great book too, by the way. I didn't even get to tell you.
thank
It's
you,
it's
thank
so
you,
much fun. Thank you for letting me read. I can't wait to get physical copies. It's so rad. Can't Good job,
thank you.
dude.
Thank you, man. But yeah, that Kickstarter is going on. You can check out that. At the very least, watch the trailer. I like making those trailers and stuff. And if you want to support, there's tiers ranging from $1 to $199. That's like original art sort of stuff. But
Mm.
every little bit helps. Like we talked about here with conventions and stuff. Any little bit helps with our process and getting more work out. Not only for like, hey, to print the books and stuff, but also like whether people want to say it or not, morale. It does
Yeah,
boost morale. Like just
does.
seeing one new backer or one new person at a convention maybe just buys a sticker. Doesn't have to
Hmm.
be a big thing. It's just like, hey, like someone like checked out my thing, sort of thing. So it's always helpful. You can check out that Kickstarter. All my socials are Dismay Comics. That's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I lucked out there whenever I created it. I didn't have to add the numbers or anything. I had it. I had the original Disney comics. So you can check out all that stuff there.
Love it, dude. It's always a pleasure, Brandon to Brandon, speaking and whatnot. It's always fun. I can't wait to get you back on the show. But thank you so much, dude. I appreciate you and I appreciate everything you're doing. Hopefully, we get to set up at a con sometime in the
Yes.
next year or two. That'd be so wonderful. But until then, thank you so much, and we'll continue to promote your work as always. And our audience, thank you so much. Inspired Ink is back for our next round of interviews. We have a lot of stuff coming. We figured, we took a break during con season because con season is wild. And now we're in the fall, winter where we're all grinding at home and just trying to get work done for the next con season. So here to inspire you, here to enlighten you. And as always, stay creative, stay inspired, and thanks for hanging. Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of Inspired Ink featuring Brandon Ingram. If you're a comic creator ready to bring your vision to life, look no further than Comix Wellspring. We're not just printers, we're your partners in creativity. With our exceptional customer service, you'll never feel lost in the process. And if you need your comics fast, our lightning quick turnaround times have got you covered. And for those big ideas, our industry-leading bulk pricing options make large print runs a breeze. Don't let your masterpiece gather dust on your hard drive. Click the link on the screen now, and let's turn your pages into reality.